All right, great. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for making some time this morning to discuss and talk a little bit about catalyzing exports from Africa. It's a very left field topic, never discussed in any of our sessions ever before in Sankalp or frankly in the investment or development world in general. But as Avishkar, we felt it's a significant topic that needs to be debated, particularly given a heap of potential direct development and impact that can lead from export. So without further ado, we are waiting for two more members, Kevin and Benjamin, who will join us very shortly. They're both having, I think, some level of IT problems. Let me start with some quick introductions. Fahad, maybe you can kick off with a short introduction on yourself, followed by Isaac, after which we'll have Benjamin and Kevin join us. But maybe you can just give us your name and what you do, and then move to Isaac.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ashish. My name is Fahad. I'm the founder of YYTZ Agro Processing. We are a cashew nut processing company based in Tanzania. Our focus is on building an inclusive cashew nut value chain, working directly with smaller farmers and women's groups in the southern part of the country. We've also built a processing facility in Zanzibar where we do all of the value addition and export finished retail-ready cashew products, both regionally and internationally. Thank
you, Fahad. And later on, I am going to ask you the question, how you came up with this ingenious name YYTZ, which has been puzzling me since yesterday, but we'll get to it in a second. Kevin, good morning. We'll just come to you. Thank you for joining. Isaac, perhaps you can just give us a little bit on yourself.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here. My name is Isaac Maluki. I'm the founder and director of Shona EPZ, a garment manufacturing factory in Kenya. We mainly manufacture knitted garments for exports to the US, UK, and France. Started about 4 years ago with 47 employees. We're now at 600 workers and looking to scale up to about 1,500 employees by the end of June of this year. So we are really glad to be here and to be able to talk more about our exports opportunities and challenges.
Thank you, Isaac. Kevin, good morning to you. Kevin, perhaps you can just give us a little bit of background to yourself and brand Kenya, and we can then kind of kick off the Q&A.
Okay, good morning. Sorry for joining a bit late. We were having a bit of connectivity challenges. My name is Kevin Kai. I work with the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency. We are a state corporation under the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Cooperatives. Our main role or purpose in government is to ensure that the export volumes grow and our trade imbalance reduces. So with that, we also have the function of looking at branding our products as we take them out there. Within KEPROBA, we have quite a number of directorates that directly look at impacting and working with our exporters. We have the market development department that looks at issues of market development out there. That is the exhibitions, like currently we are having the Dubai Expo that has been running from last year, October, until it's going to end on March. It is us who are coordinating the participation or Kenya's participation in that. We look at also supporting enterprises and building their capacities to meet the requirements for different countries to be able to export their products. And we just build capacity, do information dissemination, and mainly see to it that our products, when they go out that they are branded to the expectation of the market. So that's who we are. I work with I'm representing the CEO currently, who is a bit busy. So that's who we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, thank you very much. Our fourth attendee is Benjamin, who I know is desperately trying to figure out his IT issues, and he will join us shortly. Benjamin joins us from the EPZ zone of Kenya, out of Athi River. So he shall be joining us very shortly as soon as he's solved his IT problems. Perhaps we can just quickly start off why a lot of people wondering, why do we care about exports? And Kevin, I'm going to come to you first, please, given that it's something that I know our government has been putting a lot of emphasis on, and which is, why should we care about exports, but particularly from a country's development perspective? It'd be great to hear, why we as in Kenya care about it. And then Fahad, I'll be coming to you just because you're based in Tanzania, and it'd be great to understand why you're doing it. But Kevin, perhaps you can kick that off by just giving us a sense of why should we care about exports?
All right. Okay. First and foremost, when you look at Kenya as a country, when you look at what we export vis-a-vis what we import, you will notice that there's a trend where we are importing more compared to what we are exporting. And based on this, one thing that the country came up with is something we call the Integrated National Export Development and Promotion Strategy. Now, this strategy is looking at 8 sectors. These 8 sectors are supposed to, number one, see to it that we reduce the trade imbalance. Now, the trade imbalance is vis-a-vis, in a nutshell, is very quick. Is what do we export vis-a-vis what do we import? And when you look at our data and our statistics for the last few years, you'll find that we are importing so much. In fact, our ratio is 3-to-1 vis-a-vis what we are exporting. So you find that there's a huge imbalance. And as a country, we sat down and we looked and we said, how can we be able to reduce this balance so that we eventually get to the point that we are exporting more, in as much as no country is self-sufficient, but we ensure that we're exporting more, even in as much as we are importing. And that is why we developed what we call the Integrated National Export Development and Promotion Strategy that is looking at 8 key sectors. And these 8 key sectors are supposed to drive our export volumes and reduce the trade balance. And we are looking at reducing our growth of exports at 25% average. And we are working towards it, and we are almost there. However, there are quite a number of challenges. The export strategy looked at, and it was like, we have to address the bottlenecks that are facing exporters on the ground. Some of them are regulatory. Some of them are just issues of compliance. And I think that from the discussion of today is looking at export opportunities within the EU. If you look at the export strategy, is very explicit in terms of the opportunities that are there that are bound within the EU. And with this new legislation that is coming up, obviously it requires a little more input and a little more work that needs to be done on the ground so as to be able to comply with the EU requirements. But the EU is central to us because even within when you look at our exports by country or by continent, the EU stands out as one of the hugest consumers of our products. So for us, obviously, we want to see Kenya grow in terms of our exports to different countries, even within the EAC, and more so even to the EU. And for us, the exports play a critical role towards meeting this. So for us, we want to see the export growth grow. As of yesterday, we were seeing that our export volumes might grow by a huge margin. And we are seeing growth on an annual basis. So for us, we want to see key development in terms of our farmers, our producers have more income and flow that they can be able to do business with the international world. And even with this in mind, we're also looking at having a system in place where we can actually connect buyers and sellers to the international market. So for us as a country, obviously, exports play a key role. I submit.
Great. Thank you, Calvin. That's very interesting. In fact, there's significant amount of research that's already been done that has demonstrated that export-oriented businesses have a disproportionate amount of development impact in the economies in which they serve the export market. Simply from a variety of aspects, including faster technology transfers that happen through to obviously foreign exchange earnings, because the world is predominantly US dollar denominated or euro denominated, and that really helps with the trade balances, as you're alluding to, and then creating disproportionate amounts of employment, right? Because you're kind of serving in a general sense the world as opposed to just your domestic market. So it's very clear that from a development perspective, it's very highly attractive. What is interesting is that there's always been a lack of attention, at least from the donor community or the DFI community, on the export markets, and much more attention has been paid to a lot of the financial inclusion mechanisms, which are important as well. But hopefully during the course of today, we can talk a little more about the development side as well. Fahad, just coming to you, I mean, do you have a view on this in terms of why you thought about the cashew nut? Maybe you can tell us about your brand YYTZ a little bit, and why did you pick on this sector? And is it coming from your perspective? Did it come from a contribution to the development of Tanzania, or is it just something very different? I would love to hear that.
Yeah, thanks, Ashish. I think you touch on a great point that exports hasn't really been at the forefront of the agenda for a lot of development agencies, but even also local financing institutions. For me, I focused on the agricultural sector and agricultural exports, specifically cashews, because one, Tanzania is one of the largest producers of cashews in the world. Africa now produces 60% of the world's cashews. It is becoming a very important export cash crop, but we still participate very little in value addition. So we process less than 10% on the continent. Tanzania processes less than 8% in country. And by processing, I simply mean, removing the shell from the cashews. That rudimentary process is not being done in country. It is being exported mainly to Vietnam and India for processing, and then re-exported to EU and North American markets. We looked at cashew because we saw that there was, one, a competitive advantage in terms of size, timing of the crop, and the importance that it plays as the #1 traditional export for the country. It offers a very, I would say, attractive opportunity for value addition, simply by adding processing in the country. Ourselves, as a company, we developed a brand called More Than Cashews, and we decided to go even further. So we thought that there were even more opportunities to bring back more of the value addition in country. So we do roasting, we do flavoring, we do packaging, we export finished products. And our thesis is that Africa as a whole is much more well-positioned to take advantage of these changing consumer behaviors, which are, consumers becoming more and more discerning about the origin of their products, about traceability, about the sustainability of the products that they consume. Our value chain is unique in a sense that it allows us, by bringing more value back, to pay farmers very good prices. And we've actually gone a step further to include farmers in the first process. We thought, why move cashews to another location to do the shelling if that can be done directly in the rural communities and create more value that can actually be more tangible in those communities so that they can actually benefit from that process. So we pay for our farmers about 60 to 70% more by them actually participating in that value addition. And I think in most African economies, agriculture still employs a disproportionate number of citizens and who are engaged in agriculture on a day-to-day basis. And one of the quickest ways to increase your GDP is to add value to those products that they produce, and to look for markets both regionally and internationally. With cashews, it's an international market with growing demand and you know, an array of uses now in new markets and new products that go all the way from non-dairy to plant-based meat alternatives. And I think our role is really just to see how can we tap into these niche markets to create as much value as possible, bring that value back, and make sure that it reaches the communities where it's grown.
And thanks, Fahad. Thank you very much. And Fahad, so, I mean, your business is reasonably young. From what I'm hearing, it wasn't, I mean, you're looking at this completely, there is a business sense to do what you're doing. There is money to be made in this sector, or at least from the export. And cashew nut seems to be just one of many things that Tanzania grows, right? I mean, Tanzania is big on cotton, big on macadamia, big on many other agri products. So do you see this opportunity across many of the quote unquote commoditized items that we're kind of exporting today to Asia or in India, which eventually finds its way back into Europe?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's an enormous opportunity across the agricultural value chain, looking at export products specifically, and a real case to have more of the value addition be done locally. One, it becomes a lot more sustainable with the reduction of the carbon footprint of those products. And also it allows for an increased level of traceability into where those products are produced, and the opportunity to really impact the lives of the farmers that grew it by bringing more of that value back. And so we see it in the horticulture sector. You touched on cotton, which really provides a lot of opportunity for vertical integration, for use of those raw materials into the textile market. And then for us, yeah, with cashews, which is you know, kind of our bread and butter.
Wonderful. Thanks, Fahad. Benjamin, I see that you've joined us. Good morning to you.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Great. I'm glad you're here. Perhaps just to quickly introduce yourself, and then we can bring you in.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for the technical issues, but my name is Benjamin Chesang. Currently the manager in charge of research planning and innovation at Export Processing Zones Authority. The Export Processing Zones Authority is a government institution responsible for the promotion and facilitation of export-oriented investments. And we are under the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development.
Got it. Thank you very much, Benjamin. Isaac, just coming to you, I know you're based in the export zone in Athi River. You started your business about 4 years ago. You've done incredibly well. Apparels is the area that you've chosen. Give us a little bit of history about why apparels, where you see the opportunity, and why did you pick on that? And you know, if you could also flavor something for the benefit of Kevin and Benjamin in terms of what are the impediments that you have faced as an entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur, in developing this segment, it'd be great to hear.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So 17 plus 4, about 21 years ago, started doing social audits and inspections in different factories in 9 African countries on behalf of importers from the US, UK, and other parts of Europe who had an interest in placing orders in factories and at that time I was able to sorry, I was saying I got an opportunity to do audits and inspections, social audits and quality inspections in different factories in 9 African countries. we were able to inspect and audit the food industry, the garment industry, and the like. And mainly we did a lot of garments. So I spent a lot of time getting to understand the opportunities.
We'll just come back to Isaac. Isaac, I don't know, apologies, I don't know how we can help you on this end, but perhaps Jaya will just look into it. Kevin, let me just move to you for a second in the meantime. I wanted to pick up on some point that you raised, that we're trying to grow our exports at 25%, presumably over a period of time. What have you come across many of our exporters on the continent, and Benjamin, I'm also going to draw on your experience because you're based with them in the industrial areas. What are the impediments that you are referring to? I mean, you talked about some level of compliance, regulatory, but what are the complaints that you're hearing from our exporters? And also just expand a little bit on brand. You mentioned brand. Are you referring to brand Kenya in terms of the importers into the developed countries, finding it the necessity to make sure that we are associated with quality? Or if you could just expand a little bit for everybody to understand a little.
Okay, thank you. From our assessment, we at some point before, and maybe just to highlight, is that we are an institution that is a merger of two. One, which we call the former Export Promotion Council, and now we have what we call the Brand Kenya Board. We were merged, and that's how we came to be the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency. When we merged, we definitely had to sit down and look and see, okay, we want to grow our exports, yes. What are the issues that are facing our exporters on the ground to be able to address and support them in terms of accessing more markets, growing their export volumes? For us, our target is to see that the trading balance is reduced. So we had to sit down and meet with the stakeholders and the people on the ground to get to understand what it is that they're actually facing. We had a session with quite a number of the associations, and we got to understand what are the impediments, or what we call the pain areas that is actually affecting them, what really pinches them on the ground. And you'll find one of the issues that really stood out, obviously, is the issue of the cost of doing business down here. You'll find that they say some of the inputs are going up, and this is due to maybe the cost of power and all that. Issues of regulatory expectations in terms of now access to markets. Some people felt that some of the requirements are a bit stringent. And now, as you can see, we are moving now to a new law that is coming up for the EU. It obviously increases the expectations for the farmers on the ground to be able to meet. Just issues of the access to markets has been the biggest problem. So we've had to sit down and look, how can we be able to support the farmers on the ground, the people on the ground, the business persons on the ground who want to be able to access more markets? What can we be able to do? And one of the things that we had to come up with is to look at supporting the people, the farmers, through capacity building programs, of course, through support from various development partners. Look at how we, especially when it now, like currently, one of the biggest issues, the e-portal that we are developing currently, that is on course. It's actually about to be launched. And this one will be a key avenue through which buyers and sellers will be able to interact. Because one of the challenges that exporters on the ground face is, I have the products, but now I don't have the buyer. So how am I going to be able to access the buyer? So this is the issue of linkage, of course. So we are currently looking at developing an e-portal that will be able to address this issue. And another key issue and a key challenge was obviously information. You'll find that there is so much opportunity that is out there. But when it comes now to the information that is required, that is needed to be able to access this market has been a big issue. So obviously the arena of information is quite a big challenge, but right now with the evolution of internet that is there, we try as much as possible to build the capacity of our exporters on the ground, both working and those who are experienced, so that they can be able to learn how to use some of these systems like TradeMap, which has been very useful in the sense that now TradeMap has got, you can be able to access data and information very easily at just the touch of your finger on the internet. We try to ensure that once we build the capacity of the exporter on the ground, that they are able now to be self-reliant to some extent. We have tried to create systems in place to be able to reduce the issue of back and forth, moving from one office to another. That was a big challenge that was out there. And that's why we have the KenTrade portal, where one does not need to move from one office to another to get the regulatory or the required documentation to be able to take their products out there. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that you will find that even at the export strategy that we developed, it has highlighted quite a number of the issues that I've tried to put forward. But at the end of the day, is that we as the export promotion and branding agency, we try to see as much as possible how we can try to reduce the challenges that they are facing, give them more opportunity, give them more access to information, thereby accessing more markets. When you look at the issue you've highlighted on branding, now, as you take your product out there, you want it to be branded in terms of when you take your product out there, they want to know, where is this product coming from? What is the source of this product? Where is it coming from in terms of which country? And that is where the rules of origin come into place. So we try to ensure that as our product go out there, we brand them in terms of what we call the Made in Kenya mark. We push that agenda. We are trying to push that agenda of the Made in Kenya mark, that every product that goes out has that label that says this is authentically Kenyan, that it is made in Kenya. We want to see that as our products go out there, that the brand of the country stands out, and I'm sure that is what every other country is trying to push for their products to be branded. So yes, and issues of IP have also been standing out. It's a very big issue when you look at issues of intellectual property. But we are trying to push and see like issues of our soapstone that they get the recognition that they require out there. So there are quite a number of integrations that we really face on the ground to be able to access some of these markets. But we are doing to our level best as the agency that has been mandated to do that, to see to it that we're able to address some of these bottlenecks that they are facing.
Got it. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. Benjamin, if I can just ask you, is there, I mean, you have a big responsibility from the EPZ zone. I mean, it would be interesting to hear from your perspective, what is it that you felt, or, why the EPZ zone has been set up, and how do you think we can make our exporters a little more competitive? So perhaps a little more flavor to it. Okay.
Thank you very much for that question. Now, the export processing zones, as I mentioned earlier, is a program that basically aims to promote exports from our country. As a country, we know that in terms of imports we used to import more than what we actually export. So to bridge that gap, therefore, one of the instruments that has been used is the export processing zones program. So in the export processing zone program, there are a number of objectives for which has been set. One, of course, is to create exports, that is for us to get more foreign exchange. The second one is, of course, to bring more investors into Kenya. And after bringing the investments, then the other added advantages, which includes value addition of our local raw materials, employment generation, and technology transfer. So out of that, therefore, one of the things that's been done is to provide incentives to the investors. And we have got 3 types of incentives. One is what we call fiscal incentives, that is the taxes, which includes, for example, 10-year tax holiday, and issues about VAT and duty, that is exemption of duty and VAT from all imports. And also in terms of repatriation of profits, those ones are also allowed. And in terms of procedures, is that as an investor, you're only allowed to only have one license, and that you'll be able to operate within a system where you'll be facilitated in terms of getting other procedures, other facilities that we don't provide, including, for example, work permits. That one will be able to run or will be able to do it on your behalf. And then the third thing you've also been able to do is provide facilities where you can be able to come and operate from. That is, we have industrial sheds which are available, which are fully serviced with water, electricity, and all those kind of facilities. So we have got 3 types of incentives, that is fiscal incentives, procedural incentives, and the ones which are available on site. Now, Chair, with respect to the types of investment that we require, is that it is open in terms of what an investor can be able to produce and export. So we have a variety of investors. We have in apparels, we have in agro processing, we have in pharmaceuticals, we also have in what we call call centers. We also hold those kind of, even printing, we have those kind of all those kind of facilities or investors. So ours is fairly open. Now, when it comes to the issue that you mentioned about the challenges, of course, we have got challenges that are there, and my colleague has mentioned. One of them is the issue about cost of doing business, including, for example, power costs, and that is actually being addressed. We are happy that currently the government is addressing it, because currently they have been actually been reduced at 15%, and there's a possibility again of being reduced further by 15%. The other one is about goods being transported from one place to another, in terms of which area, what kind of transport should be the investor be able to use? Is it the railway line or the road? So that is another thing we are also trying to address, so that an investor can be able to have a choice of which type of transport system he wishes to use. And then the other one is about market access. Of course, we are happy that we have a market access either to EU or to US through the African Growth and Opportunity Act. However, you have noted that in terms of this market access, particularly, for example, under AGOA, it has always been extended from time to time, and sometimes the extension comes almost at the last minute. And for that reason, therefore, maybe the investor can only be able to have commitment on when they can be able to start operations. But again, that is actually being addressed. The other one is about availability of raw materials. Of course, one of the things that is happening is that currently companies are allowed to bring fabric from other countries, bring it here, cut it, stitch, and export. But it reaches a time that provision will be decided that we should be able to have all our fabric from our country. So that again is an issue that is being addressed, and I'm aware that there is already a program to see how we can be able to revive our cotton supply industry in our country. So, Chair, I think those are some of the things that we have been able to have. And of course, finally, is the issue about competitiveness, that some countries are becoming more competitive, that when they are selling it to those particular markets, they are more competitive than us. But again, the issue of competitiveness are again being addressed. So, Chair, that's what I can be able to mention for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. I'm just going to move tact a little bit now. And this is a question again to Fahad and Isaac. If Isaac, your connectivity is better.
Yes, I think my connection is now better.
Oh, fantastic.
I hope you can all hear me now.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Isaac. Perhaps you can just take this, and then maybe Fahad, you can move to the agri side. I have a question here, which is to do with the just to elaborate a little bit around the aspects of traceability, particularly for the agri value chain, but I know for the apparels value chain, it is just as important. You know, what are the specific measures? It's a question that has been raised on the chat group here. What specific measures have been taken up to improve traceability of agriculture and, in your case, Isaac, apparels commodities? You know, particularly reference to things like blockchain technology or others. I presume, you know, how do you make sure that there is authentication here? And what type of impact or impacts did improve traceability lead to in terms of outcomes? Is a bit of a difficult question, but Isaac, maybe you can have a stab at it first.
Okay. Just a quick mention that on the apparel sector, what we used to concentrate on a lot was making sure that the goods are done, the manufacturing is done in country, and we are able to know where the raw material has come from, and to build up on that traceability for the factories that I used to audit and inspect before starting my factory. Now, the importance of traceability always brings back to just ensuring that whatever we are doing on our side, we are doing it in an ethical manner. We are making sure that the buyer is getting the comfort that it's being done the way it's expected. And so what's happening now is that in Africa, since we are not able to manufacture the kind of quality raw materials that is expected to do the final garment manufacturing, then we actually have to import our raw material from different countries in Asia and China, just as an example. So what the client does is some of their products, they will then nominate us to, nominate a particular raw material supplier for us to take to. So we have no choice but to pick from that. And it then builds up on the fact that the buyer already knows where the raw material is coming from. And then the rest of the processes for us is making sure that that final coat that is being made or t-shirt that is being made, we can be able to tell where it was made, when it was made, and actually probably even trace it by within which group of people made it.
I think if I may just interrupt you there, just could you link, because I know you export quite a bit of your produce. I have a question also from Nina, which I think is relevant to what you're just asking, which is to say that, you know, I'll just quote, I find the pain point is to find easy access to the processes to the process of exporting goods, what certificates are needed, etc., where from, and costs. So perhaps you can just give some flavor in terms of how you do it, so that it can just help her understand how she could get more efficient with it.
Okay, so there are internationally recognized certificates that you can get that are not specific to clients, but there are certificates that if you have, then you'll find now buyers interested in coming to place orders with you. So something like taking a RAP audit or an SA 8000 audit or a BSCI audit. These are just the basic ones that if you have in your facility, without even being requested by any buyer, it will already start making buyers interested in coming to you. If you don't have any of those particular certificates, any person who comes to engage with you will require you to still go ahead and apply for those general certificates before they can tell you whether they're happy with that or whether they need anything specific. So I think the most important thing is to be able to say, set your factory up so that when you're ready for the social audits, it's easy for you to go ahead and get the certificates in, because it's not really about the fact that you've got the certificate, but the buyers have the comfort that you are following processes, procedures, and you're ethical in your manufacturing process.
Thanks. Thank you, Isaac. Fahid, anything more to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, Ashish. I think I can touch on the traceability aspect with regards specifically to agricultural products. And so what we've seen, and I think with this is specifically a challenge that exists in the cashew nut supply chain, is that cashews are grown now more and more predominantly in Africa. They are exported raw in shell to factories in Vietnam. They are processed there, and then they are re-exported to consumer markets. And if you go to a supermarket in the UK or in Germany or in the Netherlands, you would pick up a pack of cashews and it will say product of Vietnam, not really being able to provide insight into where those cashews were actually produced. The best one that I've seen is they will say product of Vietnam or Ivory Coast or Mozambique. So it's really an opaque supply chain without any insight at all into how or where those cashews were grown. So what we've tried to do is, one, this is also an opportunity, because as African processors, we are able to provide a level of traceability that doesn't exist in the market, is being desired more and more by retailers and consumers alike, and really becomes a differentiating factor compared to our competitors. And we took it a step further. We really wanted traceability to be one of our unique selling propositions. And so we developed a traceability system using a blockchain technology. Because of our relationship directly with smallholder farmers, we are able to now trace each pack of cashews back to the group of farmers that we bought from. So this is what that kind of looks like manifested on a consumer package. We have a QR code that the consumer can scan, and they can actually see when it was bought, when it was roasted, when it was packed. And ultimately what we would like to do with this is have the retailer also be part of this chain, so that you can see when the retailer took ownership of that product, and then finally the end consumer. Because the idea is that, you know, we are all part of this chain, each actor as important as the other, and really just trying to emphasize that the importance of building an equitable supply chain where all actors benefit, especially farmers.
Thanks. That's very interesting. I mean, I've never seen that level of detail, to be honest, even in the UK as of yet. So I'm assuming this is a lot of consumer pressure now, asking for complete traceability down to the end point.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're probably one of the first companies to do this with cashews. I know that there are some companies in South America that have started doing this with coffee. And so that's where things are going. And I think as a continent, we're well positioned to take advantage of our proximity to production and to farmers to provide that backstory and that insight.
Got it. So, I mean, you know, one of the things that I've always argued, and you know, the startup environment in East Africa today is very much around core technology or technology-enabled businesses, and I kind of sometimes wonder, which are typically addressing domestic markets, right? And I kind of wonder at times that are we missing a point here where the export-import market is, you know, significantly larger than any one domestic market that we have. And, you know, one statistics that I kind of say is that Germany today accounts for 7% of the global trade as a small country of 60-something odd million people, 72 million people. Africa, with a population of 1.3, 1.4, maybe more, contributes to less than 3% of the global trade market, right? And yet a significant percentage of commodity items continue to be processed here. Tanzania is the world's 5th largest exporter of organic cotton, for example, right? It's going into Asia, getting converted back into textiles, which we then import back into Kenya to make it into fabrics. So I'm kind of trying to, you know, why is our youth not embracing this bigger opportunity in a way, right? In almost a way that, is it that we're not talking enough about it? Is it that there isn't enough information about it? I have a question here which is related, which is saying is how interested are farmers, producers, interested in value addition and processing of raw materials to increase export value? I'll just open it up to any one of you for that. Do you have a view? How do we get our guys to do more of what you're doing, Fahad? It's not as if it's Einstein theory, right? Are we just overlooking a huge opportunity?
Yeah, I think you touch on a good point, and I think one of the challenges that we've seen, and a factor that I think can't be spoken about or overlooked, is the access to finance and the support for processing businesses, particularly in the agricultural sector. Starting up a processing industry is capital intensive, not just on the CapEx, but on the working capital side. A lot of our local financing institutions are very happy financing trading businesses. So the businesses that just buy from farmers and export raw products, it's something that they know historically, it's what we've been doing. So as soon as you start talking about processing, you kind of lose them. They don't understand it. It becomes challenging for you to say that you want to start doing something like that. They would like to come in and support you when you're 5-7 years down the line. But at the onset, it's very difficult to mobilize that support. I think on the other question around farmers, what we found is that farmers were actively looking for ways to add value. We found them doing that. The biggest challenge that they had, and I think this was something that was touched on earlier, is markets. Where do they sell these value-added products? And how can we as processors aggregate that into demand? So on the other side, being able to market those products to the right markets, to the right buyers, fulfilling their requirements. Isaac touched around certification, around standards, around also just being able to communicate and have your packaging stand out and be able to attract those buyers. So going to those markets, I think there's always that disconnect. But I think in terms of farmers, if you can offer them an opportunity to earn more through a simple act of processing their products, and you can provide a secure market for them, you'll find that you create a very, very strong kind of buy-in effect.
Got it. Isaac, anything else to add to that? Do you see it differently?
I don't see it differently. Actually, he's really articulated it very, very well. And maybe also to add on to the fact that once we've started creating that aspect of traceability, it will basically build up more confidence in buyers just trying to place more orders in Africa, because as we are right now, our biggest competitors are the established manufacturing spaces out of Africa, and we are now competing with them in price. But then remember, as you've just been told right now by Fahad, the resources are actually right here in Africa. And so in as much as people want to try and now shift over and start placing orders in Africa, they are still coming from a place of where they have been placing their orders before. And we don't want to lose that kind of a situation by then compromising on price, but we also want to build up and tell them, look, we want to give you, we'll probably give you a higher price, but we'll give you better quality, we'll give you traceability, we'll give you an ability to be able to be confident that the product that you're receiving is exactly what it is.
Isaac, I have a question from Eunice, which perhaps you can try and help address, and Fahad, coming both from a business background, which is, our company produces snacks in Uganda and would like to start exporting to the region, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, DRC, and I'll just add EU to that equation for her, bigger market. Our products have the UNBS quality mark. I presume it's some sort of a snack quality mark. How can I get access to these markets? as an SME. Now, obviously, we've talked about the portal. Coming from a bit of a marketing background, portals work, but somebody has always got to do a push, right? You've got to understand who your clients are, and you've got to understand what they're looking for before you can actually sell. Do you have any advice for these young entrepreneurs in terms of how do you start mapping out your potential clients, and how do you kind of, what is the kind of few legworks that we can do? I mean, this is a one-day session, right? You've got 5 minutes to tell us it. So, just some directional will help her.
Okay. I think one of the most important principles about selling any product is that you sell yourself first. And so when anyone needs to think of what can I do in terms of investing in my business, you also have to think about investing in the time to go and meet these clients in person. If you're not there in person, then it becomes very difficult for them to start getting to know you and to create that kind of confidence in trying to place orders with you. That said, it means that now it's important to get in touch with the portals and start requesting on how you can start building up on face-to-face meetings. Yes, online meetings will work, but also see how you can travel to these countries. In the US, you're going to find conventions for everything, for garments, for toothpicks, for glass, for food, for anything that you want. Yeah, so find the conventions, go to the conventions, go with what you have, and then have the help of the institutions like the American Chamber of Commerce, the USAID, and the like, to be the ones to work with you when you're meeting your clients. And then that way, once you start building that confidence or getting to have the meetings with the clients, they'll start getting an interest, and it will just be mind-boggling. It's how we started it 3 years before we started the factory. We started by just visiting the clients and seeing if we started the factory, whether they'd be interested in placing orders with us.
Thank you very much. Fahad, anything else to add, given that you're coming from us?
Yeah, definitely. I think I can touch specifically on that question because I know what the UNPS quality mark is. It is, similar to KEBS. And I think the advantage that we have in East Africa is that we have harmonized our standards, which makes it very easy for you to trade across the region. So I think the next step for you is really just to see, who is it that you want to sell to, and just understand that consumer market in that country. How can you be competitive? How can you offer a very strong value proposition to that customer? And then I think if you go a step further and you want to access markets like the EU or North America, then it's really about understanding that market and seeing how can you get in front of those customers. Like Isaac mentioned, I think retail and these categories are very well organized in developed markets around trade shows and exhibitions. I'm actually on my way to a trade show in the US for natural food products to get in front of potential customers, because I think there is nothing better than being there, being able to show your product, tell your story, and really induce that confidence that we can produce great products in Africa, that we can add value, and that we can compete in global markets.
Thanks, Fahad. So I'm just going to, Kevin and Benjamin, I have an interesting question here, which are, what would you say are the sunrise export sectors for Africa that we should be thinking about, right? I'm done talking cashew nuts, I'm done talking avocado and fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, are you seeing some trends, or having been to the export shows in Dubai recently, any sunrise industries that you would like to kind of call out and something that we should be thinking about, particularly in higher value addition? Either Kevin or Benjamin, I'm fine. Maybe Kevin, you can start, and then Benjamin.
Okay, thank you. I think I want to pick up on something that Fahad had actually raised, which was very key, the issue of access to finance. And you'll find that's actually a very big challenge that most people have on the ground. And as you said earlier, in one of your brief introduction, is that you'll find that a lot of our products that are going from Africa are mainly going raw. They are not being processed. And that is a big issue generally for the African continent. And for us, I would say from our point of view is that when you look at, as I actually highlighted the export strategy, we want to push the narrative from, we move from just raw, and now we moved to processed and final products that have been for the market. Because you'll find a lot of our products are going out there, they're being blended, and then as you say, they come back again to us as something else that is actually finished. So what, for me, when you talk about the Sunrise products, is that Africa has a lot of natural resources, natural minerals, natural products that we can actually take advantage of. The biggest challenge that we have is that most of these products are going out there to the export market, mainly raw. And maybe that is due to maybe by design or whatever, but at the end of the day, we have to push the agenda of seeing that our products are not only going raw, but we process them, we package them, we take them out to the export market when it's a finished product. And actually you can say this is a product of Tanzania. This is a final product of Uganda. This is a final product of Kenya. This is a final product of whichever African country. The biggest issue for us is that we just need to ensure that our products, all the products that Africa have a market out there. You can actually go to South Africa, whatever product that they produce, they'll have a market for that. As maybe Benjamin will say at the export processing zones, we do a lot of textiles and apparels that go to the US. All of these products that we actually produce within the country or within Africa have a demand somewhere out there within the EU, within the US, within the international market. So it's just maybe to look at how we can actually do more value addition and ensure that whatever product we take to the final market is actually a final product that we can say this is authentically Kenyan, this is authentically Uganda, this is authentically Tanzania. And at least it will bring more, might I say, money to the producer and to the manufacturer at the end of the day. So for me, where I come from, I believe every product that is out there in Africa has a demand out there. It's just that now we just need to promote more of value addition and do more and do less of raw exports. That's what my view would be.
Ben, anything more? And I'm just going to, just Benjamin, sorry to interrupt. I'm just posting a quick question to everybody on the call. I'm just very curious because it's my agenda to have ideas about how could we get entrepreneurs in Africa more excited about developing export-oriented businesses, right? So kindly just paste it all on the chat, and maybe Jaya or somebody can just write it down, because I'll pick it up with Kevin and Benjamin later offline to see how we could kind of probably work with these agencies that we have with the government to get entrepreneurs more excited about doing more export-oriented businesses. But sorry, Benjamin, please, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the question. And in respect to the sectors that we are seeing that we are trying to promote, for what you're calling it sunrise sectors. Now, I think my colleague has already mentioned some of the sectors, but what I can mention, one of them is, for us, one of the sectors that we are seeing it actually coming up is the pharmaceutical sector. That is where a company can come and produce products for export to the region, to the Africa or region, the outside world. So we have seen that sector as one of the sectors that is actually rising up. And we actually have seen even in the EPZ, we have actually having now two of the leading companies of the world now establishing the EPZ, and we are looking forward to even more coming to the zone. The second one, of course, is my colleague has mentioned agro processing. We are still seeing that as a major sector. Currently, out of the 140 companies that we have in the EPZ, 45 of them are in agro processing, and we still feel that there is room for more value addition. Still, under agro processing, we are also seeing now in the international markets, the consumer now requires agro products that are grown naturally, that we don't use the fertilizers. They require natural products that are grown naturally. And therefore, that is a sector that I'm actually also seeing growing up. And as a country, we can focus on that. That's an area that is actually going to grow. The other sector I'm also looking at is the issue about leather sector. That is in terms of products that relates to leather. That's an area that can actually we can also be able to focus on. And the other sector, which is services, I also feel it is also an area that we can focus on is the business process outsourcing. That is where we can also be able to focus on. The other thing I also wanted to mention, which my colleague mentioned, what we're also doing to encourage promotion of exports from Kenya, particularly in the EPZ, is also to focus on small and medium enterprises by providing them services within the EPZ program, where they can be helped to grow in terms of probably looking for the markets, looking even for space where they can operate, and also improving their quality products. So that is what you're also doing under the EPZ program to see to it that actually the SMEs also come on board. The other thing we're also doing is that we're also going to the counties now. We are now working closely with the county governments with a view to ensuring that whatever is available within a particular county can be promoted and exported for export. And by so doing, we see to it that actually the exports from Kenya can be able to increase. So, Chair, I submit.
Thank you, Benjamin. I mean, those are very good ideas. Leather for sure. I mean, I realize that we're a big exporter of raw meaning dried leather to China, where they come back as shoes back to us.
Yes.
And then I had some very interesting ideas. I polled a number of people in the business community in Kenya. Some areas that were talked about were in the invisible export trade, right? So healthcare was one that came out, that we could, become a center of excellence, as has Thailand, for example. Significant amounts of healthcare tourism is a big earner for Thailand. There was also, I was surprised that Kenya and Tanzania in the top 5 exports is in gemstones, right? So again, a lot of the value addition is happening outside the country as opposed to inside the country. So I think there's a lot that can be added on. Few of the ideas that are coming here, Kevin and Benjamin, that just as ideas about trying to get the youth more into export or entrepreneurs, not necessarily youth, but entrepreneurs more into export-oriented businesses, information, and also some level of get-togethers around formalized forums such as this, where we could entice people to kind of think outside the box from an export-oriented market and provide them solutions from financing to marketing to other aspects, so that you are easing their way into understanding how exports can work for a country. Because it seems that some of the very basic impediments are lack of lack of information. And therefore there's anxiety about how do I actually sell into the UK or Germany, because I simply don't know how to do it. Would you agree with that? I mean, Isaac, would you say those kind of summarize it well?
Yes, I do. You said it very well. And also, when you think about, as Fahad had mentioned earlier, access to finance, we need to also see how we can get the financial institutions in this region to start giving the kind of support that is required for most of these factories that would be setting up, because they would come in as SMEs, as startups, and they need the kind of support. My example is that I'm actually sourcing for finance from Asia and Europe, because the financial institutions in this country feel that since they don't know the industry that I'm in very well, it's a risk. And the only way that the risk is going to be mitigated is if I have landed property as security. I'm not in the business of buying property. I'm in the business of manufacturing. So I get into all this where they say the business looks good, but if you don't have property, then the business is high risk. And then when you talk to the financial institutions out there, they tell you a totally different thing. We know your business, we know your industry, we can see the potential, and we are ready to support you as we have been supporting other growing manufacturers in our region. So my fear is that these institutions, when they get to understand, because they know the trend, they know that now the trend is moving manufacturing into Africa. If they get to understand that that is what is going to be happening and they want to put their support, what they'll do is that they'll start establishing themselves here. And our institutions, our financial institutions that are currently based in this country, will miss out on that boat. But then before that, you'll have a lot of SMEs and the like struggling to break that barrier, that 5-year barrier. And probably what will happen is that now the established foreign manufacturers will simply just come and set base in Africa. So that is one of the things that I think would need to really be looked into very well.
Thank you, Isaac.
Yes.
Fahad, any final closing? Sorry, Benjamin, do you have?
Yes. I also wanted to just add what he has mentioned about finance. I think finance is one of the major issues that actually the investors face, and in particular the small and medium enterprises, because when it comes to them being analyzed to be given loans, the normal traditional ways of looking at them is quite inappropriate for those SMEs. So that if you go to the bank will look at it, and then eventually they'll also request, as my colleague has mentioned, they'll request for a title deed, for which in this particular case may not be able to be applicable. So I think one area that really we need to look at is the issue of access of finance to SMEs and also to investors for the purpose of them producing more for export. The other, of course, is that, which I also did not mention earlier, about one of the challenges that we have is that we currently have an inadequate supply of industrial sheds for investors. That is the space that we have investors who are waiting, and yet we don't have the available industrial sheds for them. So we are looking for investor who can be able to come to our zone, because we have land at the river EPZ, so that it can be able to put up industrial sheds for lease to other investors. And one way of also encouraging them is through probably a financial kind of a system where they can get a finance for them to put up that facility. So, Chair, I believe the issue about finance is key for the purpose of promoting exports from our country. Chair, you mentioned about an interesting statistic about Germany alone. Germany alone being able to produce so much in the world market, and yet as Africa or even Kenya, it's very little. And by this kind of a fund, maybe we can be able to increase our export volumes to the world. Otherwise, I really I wish to encourage also investors to come into Kenya and also consider EPZ program, because I mentioned we have incentives that they can be able to access and produce goods for export. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Benjamin. Fahad, any closing comments? We're coming towards the end of our session, so perhaps I'll just go around for any closing comments now, starting with you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ashish. I don't think I can reiterate enough what Isaac was talking about. My experience is exactly the same. We've never been able to get any financing locally. We got our first loan from Rabobank in the Netherlands. Local banks don't understand. They were comparing processing cashews to building aeroplanes. where you can find cashews being processed in people's homes, readily available on the streets of Dar es Salaam. So it was a bit mind-boggling. But I think that the answer to your question around how do we get more young entrepreneurs to look at the export-oriented businesses and value addition, I think it simply comes down to, let's support them when they do try to get into that. I think that the markets are there. We have the raw materials. The access to information is there. And I think one piece of advice that I would give to anyone looking to export into the UK or Europe or North America is that it is much easier than you think it is. A lot of our standards that we have nationally are sufficient to access those markets. You might have to make some small changes to your packaging to just add a little bit of information that is relevant for that market, but you don't need any crazy certification or anything really extravagant to be able to send your product there. And I think the next step is really just to get it into the hands of the right customers and the right consumers, and really just to get it going. We have everything that we need, and I think that I think with Ashish and the whole team, I think we can also get the financing bit to come in to really just try to catalyze the sector, and hopefully have government also kind of support with policies that are specific to products that are strategic for export. And rather than having a blanket set of incentives, but really looking at it at a product level and seeing how can we make ourselves even more competitive in the global marketplace.
Thank you, Fahad. Calvin, any final comments?
Thank you, Chair. Let's just put it that for me, that the export agenda is one agenda that we cannot be able to finish within the 1 hour that we've spoken today. But I think maybe just to highlight on something that has been touched on a lot by all of the speakers is on the issues of finance. For one to be able to access markets, you must have the products. And now, for you to have the products, you must have some form of finance or some form of something to be able to purchase the inputs that you need to be able to get so that you can be able to produce and have the products in place to take to the market. Finance has been the biggest challenge out there. And it's something that we really want to see to it that if we can have even an export fund that would support our exporters on the ground. But obviously, such programs, such as what the chair is talking about, the funding that is coming to support the SMEs, is really, really key, and it will play a key role in bridging that gap. The youth have obviously the challenges. My brother Benjamin had stated, you go to the bank, you've been given an order, and the bank, the first thing they'll ask you, okay, what sort of security will you be able to give us to ensure that we actually give you this financing? So you'll find a lot of them don't have the security that is there. And therefore, an export related fund that looks at just building them support, giving them the required financial support that they need to be able to meet the demands out there is very, very key. But in closing, I want to say that this discussion has been so great. I would wish we would have more of these discussions so that we can be able to get to know what really, as we say, is at the pain, what is actually hurting the shoe, so that we can be able to address them. But what I can actually tell you, as from our end, we know that the issue of access to finance is one of the biggest key problems that is out there. So whatever support that we can get to be able to inform our partners on the ground to be able to get to take advantage of, that would be so much great. So other than that, it has been a lovely discussion. It has been great to meet also the panelists, Farhad. Great to hear what's going on them as business persons. So I'll be waiting to see where we move from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Benjamin, any closing remarks?
Yes, I think mine is really appreciated the organizers of this particular session. I think it has been very interactive in terms of exchanging ideas on what's happening. And I'm also happy about the people who are actually on the ground, as the investors who are actually on the ground, that be able to share with us their experiences and some of the challenges that they go through. And I'm happy that you are saying that what we have currently is something that we look forward to, so that we can be able to enhance our exports from our country. As my colleague has mentioned, this was a fairly short session, and probably we also look forward to even more having more discussions in future. Otherwise, for me, I really appreciate you for having organized this session, and we look more for further interactions. And I also request the other members who are also online to also maybe also seek more information through our website, epsthedaykenya.com. And for any other information also, they are free to really contact us. So Chair, I wish to really thank you very much for organizing this meeting and for chairing the session. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So Isaac, Benjamin, Calvin, Farhad, thank you very much for making this happen today for us. Thank you.